was also when, we were working on basically getting the, on-chain monkey 10K collection onto Bitcoin, because that was something that, yeah, it just made sense, right? The concept of digital artifact should just make sense. And that's something, we've been educating people on over the, last few months. The kind of difference, I mean, these are all NFTs, right? These are Bitcoin NFTs with the Oracle's protocol, but the the concept of digital artifact though is differentiated from the typical NFT that people think about, which is an Ethereum NFT. So we can talk about that later. But this is kind of the last few months have been pretty exciting to see this growth again on Bitcoin, as you're talking about, Albert. It's just hadn't been there for a number of years.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next speaker, Danny, can you sort of share, because if I understand correctly, you guys were the first collection to use recursion to inscribe.
So actually, this is kind of back to the point of, like at Solution Roundtable, actually some people are, quite technical and know Bitcoin, but people didn't know what Bitcoin Ordinals was. And that was the case for actually many months since then. So yeah, so in February, we inscribed both the OCM Genesis and OCM Dimensions collections, which basically, use code to create the collections. And in that way, the code could do a lot more than inscribing, just, JPEGs. In fact, the thing that always comes up all the time, even today, is, Bitcoin is being used for monkey JPEGs, right? And for us, we're a collection of monkey images, but not JPEGs. So the idea of using code to create things on Bitcoin, right? That's kind of the main thing that many people didn't realize, how powerful that was. And then if you can use code, right? You can create methods, you can compose things and reuse code. And that was what was powerful about, let's say the initial one, Genesis collection, because we could reuse code, to make a 10,000 collection on Bitcoin, it only took 20,000 bytes, right? That's basically 2 bytes per image, because all the images and metadata were put on. So that's how we did it for the first collection. And for the second one, we inscribe even bigger libraries of code that you could use to create the 3D animated dimensions collection. So these were the things that we were sharing. The term recursive inscription actually was coined by Casey at the end of 2022. If you look at the GitHub issues, he had already had this in mind, and you could say we implemented it first in a collection to show people you could do this, and it's very powerful. But it actually took until June before basically the recursive inscription call was actually put into ordinals.com or added to ordinals.com. And that's also when we launched Dimensions finally. And then I think it's when people saw it in action that they realized how powerful recursive inscriptions is. So that's where we are today, and seeing a lot more very interesting things using this technique.
Yeah, super. Thanks so much for that. And guys, I'm going to because the Twitter Spaces, they just see one of our icons, and we're just streaming the audio over. So I'm just going to call out your titles and names for a couple rounds so people know who's talking. So by the way, everyone, that was Danny, CEO and co-founder of MetaGood and On-Chain Monkeys. Thank you for that. And then so this brings us to the next segment. So we just asked Robin and Danny, to pioneers in the ordinal space, on how they're able to pivot so fast, because you see the users going over, and the smartest founders will adapt and ride that trend, right? And then what do the smartest founders bring? They bring the smartest investors, right? The smartest investors will see, well, this is where all the users are going, and the founders have been, jumping on this opportunity. Then we're on this also, right? So it's like a domino effect. And then so speaking of smartest investor, let's bring Jason Fong up. He's the founder of Sorrel Ventures, and he became the most prolific Bitcoin startup investor of the first half of 2023. of this year. So Jason, can you let us know like how you like were so much earlier than the other investors, right? As I understand, you had a really good run on Ethereum DeFi, the ICO craze, and the NFT boom, right? So you must have seen something here on Bitcoin. Like, can you tell us what's going through your mind? Like last year was just dismal, right? At the end of the year, and then Ordinals hit, and then you're on it, right? Can you share like some insights on how you did that? That's amazing.
Yeah. So thanks. I really appreciate for hosting the event, Albert. So historically, our industry is unique in a sense that in every bull market, there needs to be some big thing that's happening. If you look at it, there was NFT that was actually last bull market, and there's DeFi that was huge, and then before that was ICO. Basically, every time there needs to be something like huge, and something of that magnitude we haven't seen in the last year or so. Obviously, people were saying, GameFi could come back, but the big question that was really that was always in my head was the question of everyone is saying Bitcoin is going to be 100K, or some people are saying 200K. We even see bets on Twitter that Bitcoin will hit X number. But a lot of times they're just making a claim. They don't have a support to why it's hitting 100K. And this is the first time, after kind of seeing Ordinals, this is the first time where I felt like, hey, that's a justification of why Bitcoin will potentially hit a new price floor in the next bull run. And that it goes back to the fundamentals, which is anything that we invest in, from day one Ethereum to anything of Ethereum to even Solana, those guys, they all benchmark Ethereum, right? No one is going to surpass Ethereum, even though every time we invest and say it's going to surpass Ethereum, it's going to surpass Ethereum, it never surpasses Ethereum. Because the utility is not as strong as Ethereum. Ethereum is saying the benchmark for all utilities in our ecosystem for all protocols, right? That's why the protocol is required to be EVM compatible. If you're not EVM compatible, your like developer community is straight up. It's like basically a huge difference, right? So the way to attract developers is by being EVM compatible. Bitcoin, on the other hand, has a very, very similar logic, which is in the past it has this value, a very simple value, which is it's Bitcoin is digital gold, where people are saying that it has the utility of the digital gold, right? We hedge against the US dollar. It remains to be one of the most, the largest market cap. But the thing that was missing is the utility that, other chains offer, right? And this is the first time where we felt that, hey, with the implementation of, Ordinals and, BRC20 ultimately all leads to, the improvement of the Bitcoin blockchain, but the most important, fundamentally, the utility of the Bitcoin blockchain. That is very powerful. That's very powerful in the sense that, for the first time as an investor, we never have to worry that this chain will ever go to zero. When we invested into the Ethereum of China, Ethereum of Japan, Ethereum of Korea, whatever, back in the days, and ICO, our concern was that project might actually go to zero, right? Here in the Bitcoin world, we never have to be concerned because Bitcoin is going to zero, everything's going to zero, right? So from our perspective, we felt very strongly that we had to pick. There has to be a justification for the next bull run, and we do believe that the utility of Bitcoin is actually going to make miners very profitable, which will justify why miners will continue to mine on Bitcoin, which ought to justify for the incentive for miners to invest in the Bitcoin ecosystem, which also is a justification of why there's going to be even more utility and more developers coming in. If you look at Ethereum community and Solana community and Immutable, Polygon, they have their own foundations that they run on a centralized basis. Bitcoin is very powerful. There isn't like a Bitcoin foundation that runs it. It's going to be the miners who potentially going to be the big investors. And obviously, because of that logic, and initially that I mentioned that every big bull run has to have something, that is strong enough of a narrative in order to justify for the next price floor of Bitcoin. I do think that this utility will be it. I do think that We are early, and there's nothing wrong with being early. I think, you know, there's always going to be leaders and there's going to be followers. We're just very fortunate that we're in this space, you know, working with some of the brightest people in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah, super. Thanks for that. Thanks for that answer, Jason. And thank you for investing in so many companies and deploying so much capital in the Bitcoin space. You're definitely leading the pack, and I think other smart investors will follow suit. Everyone, that was Jason Fong, founder of Soro Ventures. And this is really interesting to me because Jason has been running your fund, what, 7-8 years, and before that, you're working on another fund, Funbosu, which is one of the top funds. Also helped Vitalik, right, get on the map. So you know, you've been in this space for about 10 years, and that's pretty significant that you would say that, you know, you've done investments all across the crypto landscape, and nothing has been able to surpass Ethereum. But for the first time ever, you see something with the potential to surpass Ethereum. That's a pretty big statement. And, you know, it's not really just like, comes from about a decade of deep, like, crypto focused experience. So this carries a lot of weight. Thanks for sharing that. Now, I want to switch gears here. We're going to call up Nate Whitehall. He's the CEO and founder of CryptoSlate. He's bringing Bitcoin news to the rest of the crypto world now. And, Nate, we'd like to hear from your point of view, because you run a media corporation, right? Run a media company, and you get a lot of news. So when ordinals hit, what other news was going on in the crypto world, and how did the ordinals match up? I'm curious.
Yeah. So back in February is when we first covered ordinals. It was right at the time where punks became the largest NFT collection on Bitcoin. That was a time when obviously people were starting to see like the price rise in Bitcoin. So with the adoption of ordinals, obviously the transaction fees went up, miner revenue went up. There's a lot of correlating factors for the usage. We started seeing a lot of traffic for our ordinals coverage when we started to cover some of the controversy about Bitcoin maximalists calling out ordinals. At one point, Peter McCormick was calling the Bitcoin maxis, who were not a fan of ordinals, he's calling them Bitcoin communists. So that sort of coverage, where there's a lot of controversy, that generates a lot of views for us, and we got really excited about. There's kind of two groups now that have their various opinions. At one point, Taproot guys like Udi and Eric Wall went on stage at Bitcoin magazine at Bitcoin 2023. There was a lot of people that were upset how they were dressed as wizards, and they were trying to propagate their usage of it. But that for us was just so exciting, because here is all this utility that's happening on Bitcoin. One interesting thing that Jason told me, and I've talked with you guys about as well, is that the chain that has the most likelihood to ever surpass Ethereum for utility is going to be Bitcoin, because that's where there's so much development happening. People are obviously very invested in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So we're just excited at this possibility that Bitcoin has more function than just the store of value, that really all these other applications, all these other use cases for Bitcoin, even though that meant that transaction fees were going up, it seems starting to stagnate. So I think right now there's 21 million ordinals inscriptions. That's grown so much over the past 6 months now. But yeah, from like just the news point of view, we're just really excited about what's happening, all the new builders in this space right now.
Excellent. And I'm curious, like around the time of January, February, when people started wising up to, maybe it was like March when it really got heated, right? What was the other big news in the crypto space? Like,
other big news, yeah. I can tell you specifically, yeah, for the Ethereum ecosystem at the time. I mean, there's a lot of happening with Arbitrum, the layer 2s there. Obviously, the Ripple news is something that everyone's paying really closely attention to.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We had a really big story in February where the Polygon co-founder said he saw no future for Solana, Aptos, Avalanche, um, all these other layers. So we really have just been trying to understand like what news is our readers most interested in, and oftentimes that's just straight from the horse's mouth about here's what a prominent founder thinks of the ecosystem, where it's going to go.
Yeah, he might be right. When Web3 goes full blown on Bitcoin, I think the smaller chains that try to replicate Ethereum, they might be the first to go. Yeah, that might be an accurate statement. But okay, thank you, everyone. That was Nate Whitehall, CEO and founder of CryptoSlate. Next up, we have Charlie. And to the audience, we're gonna do a couple rounds on a few topics here. We're about to drop some alpha too, like some really good news for everyone coming into Bitcoin. But before we do that, I'd like to bring up our last speaker, Charlie Spears, who had a front row seat in the ordinals movement, right? Charlie, you're good friends with Casey, and you're running the order cord, and you saw this movement go from zero to a game changer, right, in the Bitcoin space. And now you're with Luxor Mining as ordinal leading the ordinal strategy, right? So can you share with us what you saw there, like, leading up to ordinals, and then what happened during this time, and what's the cultural significance of this?
Yeah, glad to be here, guys. Fantastic panelist lineup. Yeah, I come from the world of Bitcoin mining. I've been a Bitcoin focused guy for a long time. My partners and I had a very, very large privately owned Ethereum mine for a very long time here in Oklahoma. So I have touched all other blockchains. I find them very interesting. But I'm a Bitcoin guy, and I come from the Bitcoin mining space and primarily focused on energy. But as it were, I'm also a bit of a Bitcoin heterodox in that I've been here for so long, and it feels that really post block size war, the cultural layer of Bitcoin focused mainly on building the monetary kind of narrative about what Bitcoin is, which is good. That's strong. It also leads for some kind of close-minded, narrow views on what Bitcoin could be. And I have this view that Bitcoin is much bigger than a lot of people think. And we certainly see a little glimpse of this with ordinals. So I found myself just a casual interest in kind of what I would call outsider Bitcoin perspectives. And so I actually followed Casey's co-host of the podcast, Erin. I followed kind of what she was talking about. And then as Casey started to get close to releasing the Ordinals protocol, I hopped into Discord and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I got interested in the numerology of Satoshis. I was in between Bitcoin mines. We deployed a lot of hash rate in 2022, and we weren't going to deploy much, until like summer of this year. And so I had some free time, first free time in a long time. And I just happened to have gotten interested in this and hanging out with Casey and asking the right questions, as well as in some context, the only person who was like Discord native. And I also think I was one of the few people who actually kind of like, I was a little bit dialed into the NFT culture. So just kind of by chance, I found myself free, interested, and willing to spend some time on helping educate people into this new ordinals community. And so through that, I did have a very close inside look for a few months before then focusing on the private side, joining Luxor. I've known Luxor since they were a team of 3 or 4, and now I'm employee number 50. And so I still operate some independent mines. I work with Luxor, but it's really cool because I've gotten to see, this whole transition from Genesis to now it's, kind of core to the Bitcoin ecosystem, brought on a lot of new users. And from a cultural standpoint, I am until 6 months ago, I was very much welcome in all the hardcore maximalist circles. I think I still am, because I I've been here for so long. I was an OG before a lot of these people joined Bitcoin. And what I want to do is say that the cultural narrative that Bitcoin looks and acts a certain way is very good and strong, but it's also narrow. And I want to say, in the same way that 9 months ago we could not have even conceived of NFTs being on Bitcoin, there are things about Bitcoin's development in the future which we also cannot predict. And I want to say that there's more to be developed than has been developed. And so the most advantageous perspective you can take right now is to have an open mind and highly convicted that Bitcoin is a good place to build, and not be constrained by that it has to look a certain way. So that's kind of my view on the narrative and culture thing. I like to say this. I think if Casey had released ordinals before the 2021 NFT bull run, maxis would love it. But depending, just because it happened afterwards, I think we ossified a little bit on the anti-NFT cultural narrative. And I like to say the biggest node runner and self-custody onboarding event in my entire career has been this past 6 months. And through that alone, it makes me more bullish than ever on Bitcoin.
Thank you. You left it at a perfect point for our next topic. Everyone that was Charlie Spears, he's an ordinal strategist at Luxor Mining. Thanks for your view and sharing that front row's perspective. So to audience, we're going to shift gears now. At the end, we're going to right now our prize pool looks like it's somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000 USD for the hackathon. Okay, and prizes are still coming in, but before we announce like who those contributors were, let's jump into this point Charlie just mentioned about Bitcoin sort of ossifying right before ordinals, and then Nate also talking about this two camps, right? There's one camp that wants everything to stay the same. So they're denouncing like any type of innovation, and then obviously there's in my opinion, the smarter camp, people who understand that innovation and creating utility is the only way to future-proof things. Right? So this is why I'm super grateful to Casey and the whole team, Charlie, sorry for everyone, right, who helped make that possible, Aaron, and because it represents a very important shift on Bitcoin, where people maybe even now some people are afraid to speak up and innovate, because they're afraid that they'll get cracked down on by a certain group of people. So I sort of want to touch on this point, because we have a big opportunity right now. Ordinals was a catalyst that kicked off innovation. There's BRC20s, right? A lot of people are divided on that. There's a bunch of other great innovations, like Danny here, they're using recursion, pioneering things on that. Robin made the first ordinals DeFi protocol ever globally, right? You can earn native Bitcoin yield now. And this is there's a long list actually. I'm just summarizing, for the sake of saving time. But the question is, will this innovation last a long time, right? In my opinion, I believe that we have to fight for it if we want to make Bitcoin economy something that's sustainable. So we're definitely not out of the woods yet. Like, we have a chance now because of ordinals. But in my opinion, I believe that we have to not only fight for it, but do things to celebrate innovation. Right? The more we celebrate innovation, and I think some people may think like it's sort of like a parade or a popularity contest, but from my point of view, is that the more innovation I see, the more inspired I become to want to innovate new things. Right. And that's why we've come together here. The 6 people here on this panel, we represent a bigger group of people, right? And we're behind doing this thing called the Who's Who in Bitcoin Innovation 2023. And we want to keep this going, not just this time, but just keep it going until innovation becomes a central part of Bitcoin. And perhaps the people who are denouncing innovation, they also come to our camp. They're welcome to come over, right? So it doesn't have to be like us fighting them. Like, we could all part of be like this whole innovation camp. So What do you guys think about that? Let's like I like to start with Robin, Jason, and Danny, because you guys are all going to be coming up on the who's who, right? When I say who's who, like we're gonna have 30 people representing the top innovation, meaning that first time ever, right, done on Bitcoin, or top innovation, meaning that they set a new record for something on Bitcoin, right? So just like anything that pushes forward the Bitcoin innovation frontier can be, you could potentially be a candidate for the 30 on the who's who this year. So we have about 15. James, my colleague, is going to drop a survey into the Twitter, and we're gonna do a call to action. So everybody here on the call and everybody in the Bitcoin community or outside the Bitcoin community, if you think like somebody that you know either has contributed something the first time ever on Bitcoin or set a new record on Bitcoin, go ahead and fill out that form and we'll take a look. All right. So let's go around the room. Jason, Robin, Danny, like who wants to take it first? What's the significance for you guys? Because look, the who's who, right? As you guys know, it starts with a founder's journey into Bitcoin series, right? Where we interview these 30 people. And it's pretty personal because it's a dive into your origin story on how you became a founder, the ups and downs, right? And also how you got into Bitcoin, and then how you eventually created this significant thing for Bitcoin, right? Why do you guys want to share this story? Robin, CEO and co-founder of Liquidium. You have your hand raised.
Yeah. I just wanted to share my part a little bit. So I totally agree with you. I think it's like always good to see innovation, and that like gives you motivation for innovating even more. And I think for me, it's just like I want to get my story out there, kind of share everything that we're doing at Liquidium, that I've personally gone through, because like I was the youngest in like the Bitcoin startup lab in our cohort. I was the youngest guy in the accelerator that we were in, and so on. And I think it's really, a lot of people are disencouraged by their age, even because they think they are too old, or because they think they are too young. But like for me, like when Danny, like he is working on Bitcoin since over 10 years, and I was like 10 years at this point. Like I was 10 years old, and like obviously I had no clue about Bitcoin. And even now, like starting way later, we found something where we could innovate on Bitcoin, and I think it's never too late. And yeah, I think that's just kind of what I want to share, what I want to get out there, is like just start now. Eventually there will be a chance where you can innovate, even if you think like you're not the first one to do it, or even if you think like you're not experienced enough or something.
Yeah, that was beautiful. We're looking forward to your interview for a founder's journey to Bitcoin. No doubt, I'm sure you're going to inspire a lot of people to innovate, right? Just do it.
You know, one person,
yeah, go ahead,
one
Dan.
person who inspired a lot of people to innovate was Vitalik, and he was a Bitcoin maxi and also a very young person back when he was trying to get people to build on Bitcoin, right? And partly he was also, you know, so young that people might not listen to him at that point, but also just the hope. I think Bitcoin, the design of Bitcoin wasn't really made to be for a smart contract and what he wanted to do. So then he started his own chain. But before he started his own chain, right, he was actually building community, you know, getting developers excited, right, empowering developers to be, you know, successful. And that's, I think, our opportunity here for, you know, Bitcoin is also to go back to, you know, empowering developers to actually build and innovate. And I think what has changed in 2023 is like this, basically, you know, the Oros protocol is something that is actually pretty accessible to many developers, and you can actually make, you know, actually build applications on Bitcoin. I think people are excited by recursion because actually what that means is you're building apps on Bitcoin, right? This, you know, code, this JavaScript code that actually runs in the browser, and you can actually do a lot with that, and people are just trying to see, like an experiment with things that you can build.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy. Recursion on Bitcoin and ordinals. There's probably going to be some unicorn companies that come out from there, and we're also looking forward to your interview, A Founder's Journey to Bitcoin. What about you, Jason? Why are you willing to share your origin story as a founder?
Look, yeah, thanks. So I do think everyone has their own role here. At the end of the day, we play a simple role in the community where we do our job, which is, in my case, I'm an investor. And for most investors, like I said, it boils back to the fundamentals, which is where our industry is going to be in the next 5 years, 10 years. Where's the money going to be? Who's going to be the next Coinbase? Who's going to be the next billionaire? And I'm certain that there's going to be a lot more billionaires being made in the next 5 years in Web3. I'm even more certain that a lot of them will come from the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so at the end of the day, our industry is driven by speculation, over speculation, and utility and speculation, they mix together, right? It's like utility brings more speculation to the market, and speculation is good. In the past, the problem is that we have too much speculation. But over time, with our investment, investing in great entrepreneurs who are building great products, who are stimulating utility, that's gonna even things up, over time. But ultimately, you want speculation, and I think our goal is to make sure that that cycle doesn't stop, and hopefully every cycle that we're part of, it boosts the confidence of not just us as investors, but my own investors, other investors, to work together to build the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah, that's insightful. It's very true. Speculation is just part of the economy, right? It's a necessary part. The economy is an amazing organism. Like, you can't really miss any part.
Yeah, we're basically the first guy who are pumping the speculation, but once it starts, the wheel will start to go, and
It's important. It's important.
Everything will get automated.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to have that burst, that hype, right, to get that critical mass. Otherwise, the flywheel will never turn. So you're doing a valuable service now. Because you're in a unique position, Jason. You successfully navigated and invested in the DeFi on Ethereum, the ICO craze, and anti-boom. Now, what's your, like, we're gonna go on a 2-minute tangent right now, but I think it's gonna be interesting for everyone, because I've been wondering this question for a long time. So Ethereum has tens of thousands of dApps, maybe 30 plus or minus unicorns on it, like at the height, right? Maybe some of them are not unicorns right now, but at the height, maybe like 30 or 40, right? And 10,000 of dApps, right? And then yet its market cap is only $200 billion, right? Which is about half of what Bitcoin is, right? Now, Bitcoin maybe has a few hundred apps right now running on it, a few hundred. So it's a magnitude of like a 100x. Now, what happens when Bitcoin also has 10,000 dApps running on it? What is it like? What's your best guess? What is that going to do to the market cap of Bitcoin? Or how is it going to change things? Right.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think that there's no doubt that there's actually already existing products out there in the market who's in the unicorn state. For example, a lot of Bitcoin mining companies which are listed. Exchanges actually play a very important role, like decentralized centralized exchanges. A lot of them that first start off using they're basically Bitcoin exchanges, and then as our industry developed over time, they added more and more. And then of course there's the news that ETFs are coming, right? And so I think there's definitely not a lack of products in the Bitcoin space. I think it's more about what else can we do as developers so that we can add value to the chain, right? And so that's powerful in the sense that if you look at all the financial products, it's always Bitcoin that comes first. And now Bitcoin is not only the #1 financial product, it's also probably going to be catching up to Ethereum. And I think I can't explain to words and what that magnitude is going to be and how powerful that's going to be. But I know for a fact that this is going to be multiples of what we're seeing from other chains in the ecosystem right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think a conservative estimate would have to measure Bitcoin when all that utility catches up. We probably have to measure Bitcoin market cap in the tens or hundreds of trillions, conservatively speaking. But okay, yeah, and then that becomes a proper economy, right? So that's a very exciting glimpse into the future. Now, I want to bring it back to the who's who and a founder's journey into Bitcoin, right? Which dives into the top innovators and contributors on Bitcoin of this year. Their origin stories, how they got into Bitcoin, how they innovated. So, like Nate, you were very excited to hear about this project, and and now you're one of our staunch supporters, right? What motivates you to support this cause?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned earlier, we really have done our best over the past 6 years to be chain agnostic. We recognize Bitcoin is what got us here. Bitcoin is why we're all here. It's probably the first cryptocurrency any of us bought. So for us, telling original stories is key to that. Over the past 6 years, we've published about 15,000 articles, and around close to 5,000 of those have been related to Bitcoin in some real way. So we've always just seen that there's a lot of interest, even prior to the ordinal stuff. There's a lot of interest in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is often what leads the market, what gets us to these new cycles. The amount of adoption is obviously happening at a much stronger rate than anywhere else, at least with regards to financial applications. So telling original stories is kind of like that's where we just see the most amount of engagement, the most amount of interest for the types of stories that we do. There's always the hot news story of the day, but anytime there's an interesting story from a founder, it tends to just get more eyeballs. People love to read those stories. It's inspiring, as you said. Like Vitalik is someone that's been inspiring both to the Bitcoin community and also the Ethereum community. So I'm sure there will be a Vitalik of Bitcoin. I mean, you probably could call that Satoshi actually, but unfortunately we can't interview or tell a Satoshi story anymore. So yeah, for us, we're super excited at all these different founders, the 15 that you have planned so far, and then the other 15 that are yet to be determined. I'm sure every single one of those people will have some sort of interesting lesson that other people can take away and decide how that's going to benefit them to either be a builder or to be an investor or however they want to be involved in the ecosystem.
Albert, you're on mute.
Thank you for that, Nate. I couldn't have said it better myself. And thank you. We're really excited to be working with you. You're doing a great service to Bitcoin because you're getting the word out to the rest of the crypto market. I mean, there's a lot of people well, not a lot, but there's a significant number of people like Danny who, started on Bitcoin, but then went to Ethereum, right? And then realized wow, Bitcoin is programmable now, right? Or you can do a lot of things on Bitcoin now. And then when they come back, they have this massive knowledge arbitrage. Because let's be honest, Bitcoin was stagnant for many years. So if you're on Bitcoin these years, you weren't learning as fast as people developing on Ethereum, right? It's like night and day. So now when you come back over to Bitcoin, right, from other chains, you have a massive advantage, right? Huge advantage. So you're doing a very, very important thing right now, Nate. So really awesome to be working with you. And by the way, as Nate mentioned, 15 spots are still open. James, my colleague, is going to drop that Google form into the Twitter space. If you know somebody who has done something the first time ever on Bitcoin or broke a new record on Bitcoin, please fill it out. We'll reach out to them. We're going to fill up the other 15 spaces. So next up is Charlie. What do you think the cultural significance is going to be once we go full throttle with this who's who in Bitcoin innovation and then a founder's journey into Bitcoin? series?
I think the cultural significance will be pretty big. We've already seen it be pretty significant. I would hope that we learn from how Bitcoin got here. I think a lot of, we spend a lot of time criticizing Bitcoin's existing culture, but I actually think a lot of that is very strong and good. However, it's still only 2023. And, I make this point that there's a lot of time to come. I mean, I think Bitcoin at the end of this decade is going to look very different. And if we do believe that this is a permissionless network, that means anybody can build on it. And if we do believe that this network and the broader crypto asset space will permeate throughout the entire world and scale to be used by everybody, then statistically, there's an unbelievable amount of value creation, which means that there are hundreds of Vitaliks currently who probably have not even started building on Bitcoin yet. And so the way I look at it is, in the same way that Vitalik looked a little bit differently, he probably didn't like, certain things that Bitcoin couldn't do supposedly at the time, and he spearheaded innovation in a different direction. In the same way, there's people thinking about this right now, and I personally think that they're probably looking at Bitcoin with renewed kind of new perspective now, because we learned that Bitcoin can do some things. Maybe it can't do everything, but who's to say that it can't? So I say, if you want to be sure that the network you're building on is going to stay here, and this is now kind of a foundational decision-making process that people build into their risk model of how they want to, how you are chain agnostic, but then you do have to build into some chain existential chain risk into your kind of model. So why not build on Bitcoin? It's definitely going to be here. So and then we could say that Bitcoin has stagnated in the past, and I think it has in some ways, but I think it's really strengthened in just very specific ones. So I like to say, look at the things that Bitcoin hasn't done and the giant design space that's open. And I come from Bitcoin mining perspective. To me, the frontier is Bitcoin's underpriced block space. This is a data layer which is ongoing and pristine, and it's up for grabs. And right now, it's so unbelievably cheap to build on compared to anything else. And I think there's also a lot of Web3 capital trying to figure out what to do right now, and Bitcoin suddenly looks very attractive. So this is the perfect space. You got an idea. Even if you're not the top tier, most best developer, I just think you just have to be a creative developer. And then you can get access to capital, you can build things. You have a hungry, broad user base who just onboarded Bitcoin and they're hungry to use your products. So so for the who's who in founders journey, I think that people who are on these lists and whose names are just now being introduced into Bitcoin, perhaps as a small Twitter user with 20 followers, that person could be building one of the most innovative things on Bitcoin. Look at what Casey did. A random dude who loved Bitcoin, who hacked away at this crazy idea in his garage, got a couple people to help him out, and now it's the only thing we talk about. So the era of solo developer is not over. In fact, it may be stronger than ever.
Well said. Well said. I love that last example about Casey. Look, the whole, a lot of people say the who's who, the founder's journey into Bitcoin is like a popularity contest. It's not. This is a noble cause, right? And when founders are willing to share their personal stories on how they came up, their origin stories, I hope everyone takes note, because we'll find that the pattern is that everyone comes from a humble beginning, and you have to go through those ups and downs to create something significant, right? And by 30 people, the first tranche is 30, right? To kick this off as part of the new Bitcoin innovation economy. Well, we're going to set the precedence, right? It's going to be 30 different origin stories from different backgrounds, from different ages, from different cultures, right? From different beginnings, different struggles, and then also different innovations on Bitcoin. So I'm really excited for everybody that's willing to share their story. And I'm really excited for everyone who's supporting us, like Nate from Crypto Slate and Bitcoin Magazine, and also Charlie Spears and my team and everybody else who's it's just a massive community that's come together. So I think the crowd would like to ask some questions, but before we go into Q&A, I want to say a few words. Okay, we're going to drop some alpha right now, and I'm going to we're going to go from the smallest sponsor to the biggest sponsor. Okay, and then we're going to go to the title sponsor. All right, so what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Bitcoin Olympics. All right, so the Bitcoin Olympics, for those of you just tuning in for the first time, we're calling it the Olympics because what we noticed when we entered Bitcoin was that there are many brilliant people building on Bitcoin, but they were divided into technology tribes, and they normally don't work together usually, right? So earlier this year, what we did was we did a hackathon we called the Olympics. So normally countries may have their differences, but when it comes time for the Olympics, everyone puts their differences aside, and in good sportsmanship, everyone puts their best foot forward, and everyone that participates becomes better at what they do, because champions inspire champions to become the best versions of themselves. So in that spirit, we're hoping the Bitcoin Olympics hackathon also does that for founders all around the world who want to come to Bitcoin to build. All right, so we're going to involve, again, the second Bitcoin Olympics, we're going to be inviting multiple tribes on Bitcoin to share their newest tech, because cross-pollination of ideas will inspire the highest pinnacles of innovation on Bitcoin. And last time we ran for 2 weeks, we had 55 speakers and mentors and 35 submissions. Well, this time we're going to run it for 5 weeks, and we're going to have over 100 speakers and mentors, right? And we're going to have about 150 submissions from teams. Okay. So we're inviting builders, especially those outside of Bitcoin, to come join us to build awesome stuff. It's going to be the biggest hackathon of the year. Okay. And let me just, we'll release more information on August 9th, which is basically 5 days from now, right? Judging criteria, how to sign up, how to qualify, all these things, right? So, but let's get to the juicy part. So the prize sponsors, right? We already have over 100K confirmed. So, we have some new protocols, one of them being Interlay, right? They're a new protocol on Bitcoin focusing on enabling DeFi on Bitcoin and friendly to Rust developers. They are going to put up a prize of $5,000, but in their iBTC coin. Okay. The second one is Rootstock, right? Rootstock, they have actually the biggest DeFi currently on Bitcoin by TVL. I think is about $50 million TVL is a sovereign. So the biggest DeFi currently on Bitcoin is built on Rootstock. They're contributing $25,000. And the runner-ups will also may qualify for over $2 million in grants afterwards. Going up the line here, we have ICP, Internet Computer Protocol, right? They have a peg in and peg out for Bitcoin, for those of you that don't know that. And they've pledged $50,000. So by the way, all of these are tech specific. So if it's Rootstock, you have to build with Rootstock technology in order to qualify for their prize. For ICP, you have to build with their technology to qualify for their prize. So, and then we're also expecting a couple more $50,000 sponsors. So, you sort of see this pattern of $50,000. So who sort of set that precedence? Who started that? Well, the one and only, we have our title sponsor. It is Jason from Sora Ventures that kicked this all off, right? Jason, we were in Paris brainstorming, right? How we would like bring more people to Bitcoin. Jason's like, I'll be the title sponsor. Let's make this title sponsor. And the reason for this is that typically Bitcoin hackathons are usually like 8,000, 10,000 grand prize. Maybe you might have 20,000, right? But 50,000, well, that puts us into the same league as Ethereum, right? So people building Ethereum, come on over. We're going to do this. We have over 6 figures now, right? So thank you, Jason, for kicking that off and inspiring other people to pitch in. So, you're also doing a very noble service for Bitcoin. And guys, this Jason's prize, the Sora Ventures title sponsor prize, this is agnostic. So it doesn't matter what you build with. What we're going to do is you could build with any technology, right? And you could go for those prizes. And the top winners from those different technologies, we're going to take those top winners, and then we're going to do a separate round of judging for the $50,000 in prize pool. So this is going to be a Bitcoin extravaganza. And again, it's going to be the biggest Bitcoin hackathon, not just by prizes, not just by mentors and judges, but also by the number of contestants coming into Bitcoin to create cool stuff. All right. So with that said, so let's open up the what do you guys have to say about that? Like Jason, how about can you share some thoughts? You made this happen. What was going through your mind, or what's your intention there?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, you want to see that there are serious investors who are backing this, right? And like I said, I mean, everyone has a role in this ecosystem, and we're just one small individual entity looking to make that first push. And obviously, we're very grateful for the opportunity. I think even though we're putting in, 50K and seems a lot, but I hope that this will spark, an event where other people, developers, investors will see this as kind of like an opportunity for them to kind of get involved in the future hackathons, right? So, everyone, I think just needs to understand that, opportunities like this don't come very often. And certainly, I've been, 8 years in this space. Danny had longer than I have, and I've never felt more confident about my decision to invest in Bitcoin ecosystem. So I think everyone should just be grateful that that there are people like Albert who are hosting events like that, and of course happy to support in the future years as well.
Yeah, no, well said. Well said. That it is important. All that is very, very important. And thanks for putting your money where your mouth is, man. And you like inspired a lot of people, right? I think this is the biggest prize these different protocols are putting forward. Yeah, and hopefully within 2 days I can announce 2 other 50,000 sponsors for their technology. So thanks for leading the charge on that. I'm thanking you for all the contestants right now, right? And all the other people too, because the more innovators we have on Bitcoin, everyone wins. Everyone wins. All right, so let's take a look. I think there might be some. Are there any questions in the crowd? Why don't we do some questions before we sign out here? James, you're manning the or it's not even Twitter Spaces, it's X Spaces now. X Spaces, right? Let's see. Well, while we wait for the X Spaces to ask some questions, let's go around the room. What do you guys think about this Bitcoin Olympics hackathon this time around? Because I know Robin and Danny, Nate, you guys are all going to be contributors in one way or another, right? What are your thoughts on this? I mean, I know. Like, I apologize. This was not here when you guys were innovating and doing your startups, right? But it is. But we have it now. We have it now, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. And can you share more details on how people can enter and how to get started, right? For the builder who wants to be in the Bitcoin Olympics.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for that. So we are going to unlock our dev post sign up on August 9th, which is next Wednesday. Right, but before that, if you want to keep tabs on how to find that link, go to our X Twitter or X account. It's at BTC Startup Lab. At BTC Startup Lab is our Twitter account. And then we're going to be sharing the news there. We're going to be sharing the news there. So just keep an eye on that. And on August 9th, you'll be able to sign up. Thanks for asking that question, Danny. Right. So I think, yeah. Rainfire here, Mythal from Velar. So this is Velar, why don't you ask your question first? But before you ask your question, let me just say, great job, Mythal, because Mythal, they're from Ethereum, right? And then they came to Bitcoin recently. They launched on Stacks testnet and they broke the testnet. that with over 100,000, after you take away the bots, over 100,000 unique wallets and users in 1 month. So that's actually a record breaker on Bitcoin for number of testnet users for DeFi protocol before they launch. So Mythal, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Whoops. Whoops. Well, here, Mythal, can you hi Mythal.
I don't have a question at this time, but I mean, but I have.
Can you guys hear this?
In order to save it should help. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go
I
ahead.
can hear you. I'm not sure what's going on.
Thank you for sharing that. Were you guys all able to hear that there? Yeah, so again, thanks Jason for putting up the 50,000. Mythal believes that this is going to be a game changer for some teams because again, they built Velar in 3 months, but of course they had experience from before, and that's how they're able to execute so quickly and reach 100,000 users on testnet. So that was an achievement. But yeah, there you have it. This is Mythal. This is a big endorsement, and thank you for pointing that out to all the budding entrepreneurs out there, all the budding innovators that are coming to Bitcoin. And like you said, I totally agree with you. I think this is, I think the same JPEG or picture inscribed on Bitcoin is worth more on Bitcoin. This kind of logic, it seems like a no-brainer now, but I think once you guys, you guys launch on beta, right? But once you guys get full blown, you guys will also be leading a charge in Bitcoin DeFi all around. And yeah, I think there's a very big chance that Bitcoin DeFi could overtake Ethereum. I mean, we just have to ask ourselves. It's like you and Robin's project is sort of similar. Like, hey, if we're going to get Bitcoin yield at the same percentage, would you rather have that or the yield in some other crypto? I think the answer is pretty clear. So yeah, thanks for that. Anybody else want to chime in? By the way, thank you, Jason, for staying up so late. Like, what time is it? Midnight for you right now, Jason?
Yeah, it's 13 a.m. here.
All right. Well, we're coming to the end of our show. If no one, this experiment was cool. I think it's nice to see everyone's face, and then when people want to review it on YouTube, it'll be a good experience. But I think it's still we still need to figure out how to make the connectivity better between us and the X spaces, Twitter spaces, right? But let me make some last announcements. Do you guys have anything to add to that before I close this up? All right. If not, all right. So we've been talking about. Go ahead. All right. Let's do a question from Rafa before we wrap it up. Go for it, Rafa. All right, Jason.
Yeah, so it's hopefully I'm not the only one who's deciding on the winner. Hopefully we have a couple of judges here, but
yeah,
fundamentally but fundamentally I think it's important to note that you are building on Bitcoin, and I do encourage people to go test on Bitcoin. I know a lot of the developers previously were either from Rootstock or Stack. I think the attraction for investors moving forward will be definitely be on Bitcoin. And so the way to increase utility, to get the product, finding go to market strategy, all that will actually be interesting to see. But I think the fact that if you're able to convince yourself to fully build on Bitcoin is already a big step forward. And then from there, usually you and your investors and your team community figure out how to find a product that works. I do want to add one thing, which is in my experience of investing, in Web2, a lot of people say a product is number one. Product is the most important thing. Actually, in Web3, I think it's a lot of times it's the other way around. It's being persistent, it's being smart and sharp, and making certain pivots when needed. Product a lot of times in our industry, it's important, but I think it's not so important to a point that you have to kind of stick your head and gotta be like super stubborn in terms of your belief. I think if there's opportunity for you to pivot, there's no problem with doing that. Some of the best investments we've made that had the best return for us were not the companies who were true to our product, but they pivoted at a time when they felt was right. And so I encourage people to make bold move, whatever you're building, and definitely do not get discouraged if you don't find the first product fit in your first demo or in your first product. Always believe that there's always going to be real smart investors in our industry who will look for you. And so that's really important, because the worst part about my experience seeing Bitcoin drop in the last previous two bear market is really not the price of Bitcoin dropping, but the amount of talents who are leaving this industry, who are jaded by the industry. And so as investors, obviously we want the industry to be successful, but at the same time, fundamentally we're doing this because we want to encourage developers to be persistent and to not give up, and to believe in Web3.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Yeah, we're honored to have Jason in Soar Ventures as our lead investor. Best investor I ever had so far. Yeah, and this is on recording. Yeah, thanks for those insights, and again, thanks for putting up the price, because like you said, when Bitcoin dipped the last couple of times, a lot of talent left, right? And then hackathons, like this collaboration between all of us, your prize, these are things that are going to attract more talent into Bitcoin to innovate. And this is the perfect time. This is a perfect time. We're still fairly early on the game. So yeah, thanks for that. And thank you, audience, for all those questions. So let's close this out. We're running up on time. So let me make a couple announcements. For the who's who, This is going to be a 2-month journey, and we're going to be interviewing 30 top innovators and contributors on Bitcoin. And these interviews are going to be called a Founder's Journey into Bitcoin. And the starting lineup, the first 4, I'm going to unveil the first 4. Keep tabs on @BTC Startup Lab. All right, Twitter @BTC Startup Lab, because we're going to be releasing more news. So the first 4, August 8th is going to be Jason from Sora Ventures. He's going to share his origin story and how he got into Bitcoin. Thank you for that. August 9th is Danny Yang, the CEO and co-founder of Bitcoin of On-Chain Monkey and MetaGood. He's going to share his origin story. So thank you for that. That's going to, all these are going to be very interesting. August 10th, we have Aaron Redwing, which is now the CEO president of the newly established Ordinals Foundation, right? To push forward the Ordinals protocol. So that's going to be very significant. And so thank you to Aaron. And August 15th is going to be Robin Obermeyer, right? CEO and co-founder of Liquidium, first DeFi on Bitcoin layer 1 that helps you generate native Bitcoin yield. So these are the first 4. Again, we have 15 already confirmed, and we need your help. The Bitcoin and greater crypto community, we want to find 15 more. It's open right now, and the form is in the Twitter space. Go ahead and open it up and fill it out if you think somebody has created something for the first time ever on Bitcoin or set a new record, right? Or set a new record. Okay. So with that said, for those of you joining late, thank you for listening. And this show, again, is brought to you by Bitcoin Startup Lab, a top pre-accelerator in the Bitcoin ecosystem. BTC Inc., the parent company of Bitcoin Magazine, the top media on Bitcoin, Crypto Slate, a crypto agnostic media platform that brings the latest happenings on Bitcoin to the rest of the crypto world. And a big thank you, of course, to our teams and all the guest speakers that have come together to make the show possible and accelerate the advent of the Bitcoin economy. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, for your time, and thanks for joining. Okay. Logging off.